outside, you know, the old ladies and the old men who were able to come in and lend a hand to make this track a success. The track, of course, bonds me very strongly to the stadium. To be involved in this kind of a project especially, and it's a one of a kind. It's not something that you do this and then tomorrow you do another one, you know. This has been one and the only one since the last 30 over years, so you find that it's quite a big thing. It's a really big thing.
Few Singaporeans would realize today that it took 3 million bricks, 300,000 bags of cement, and 4.5 million kilos of steel and timber for man and machine to breathe life into the stadium walls. It was a labor of love to turn a Singapore dream into reality. By the end of June 1973, the stadium was finally complete. And on July 21st that year, it was opened to the public for the first time. As Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew delivered his maiden speech at the stadium, little would he have known how anxious one man behind the scenes was.
For the stadium opening, there was a briefing. And one of the brief was to inform our Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, when he speaks into the microphone, to expect a deco from the opposite side of the grandstand. Unfortunately, he was not briefed. When Mr. Lee spoke into the microphone, he heard a distinct echo from the opposite side of the grandstand. And he was a little taken aback, and because of that, he stepped backwards. And we have to compensate for that distance from the microphone. So we have to increase the volume. And we actually held our breath.
This stadium should be used to encourage not just watching, but engaging in sports and athletics. Keeping fit is a lifelong exercise. And perhaps watching other people keep fit may encourage you to do so. I now formally declare this stadium open.
The first major event held at the National Stadium was the 7th Southeast Asia Peninsula Games in September 1973. Singapore hosted the Games for the first time, and it saw a full turnout of the then 7-member countries.
I declare open the 7th Southeast Asia Peninsula Games.
The stadium, resplendent in its beauty, was the ideal venue for the opening of the Games. And for one retired athlete, it was a comeback of sorts.
Late 72, the Secretary General of SNOC called me one day and said that, hey, you will be involved with the SEAP Games at that time, in 1973. It was going to be the first time that Singapore was hosting it, and he said that I was going to be involved. So I said, what is my role? And he said that I would be the last torchbearer.
Arguably the greatest sprinter of his time, injury had forced Kunalan into early retirement in 1970.
I felt privileged thinking that, wow, they still remember me after all these years. But then on second thought, I said, wow, this is very serious, because after 1970, the Games, the whole of 71 and 72, I did absolutely nothing as far as fitness was concerned. And so I had let myself really go. And now they're asking me to run around this track and then up the steps some more. So I said, okay, I agreed to be the torchbearer, but at the same time, I told myself, I better get fit. Okay, so I was stationed in Gate 3 in the tunnel. And there were the SAF officers in charge of the flame, and at the last minute they felt that the flame was not burning brightly enough. They decided to add more fuel. So I handed them the torch, and they did that. They added more fuel, lighted it again, and the flame was really, really impressive. And I felt, yes, I think this is the flame I should carry around. I started on my run, around the bend, coming around, and then as I hit the straight, the wind was blowing down the track. The wind blew the flames down the torch and onto my hands. And then immediately I felt a burning sensation and the smell of burning hair.
It looks like the kerosene in the siap flame is being spilled over, and nevertheless Kunalan is still holding on to it very, very well.
As I was deciding whether to turn back and fixing this flame and the torch, I looked at the crowd and they were cheering and they were throwing the sun visors down and it was landing all around me. And the VIPs were there. And I said, no, one man cannot let this whole crowd down. And so I just continued. As I stood there, waiting for the right moment to touch off the cauldron, I held it up, and then the people were cheering away. I think because of all this, your adrenaline is pumping and you don't feel that your hands are burnt. And then holding it out there for a moment, and then lighting the cauldron. Whenever I look at this scar, sometimes I feel very proud. I'm glad I had this battle scar, so to say. It reminds me of the time, my relationship with this beautiful old lady. When I think about my comeback, I should say that the National Stadium had a hand in it. Because, if they had not asked me to run the last lap, I would not have started training again. I had a chance to run the stadium again.
Great landmarks always bear some significant characteristic. The resounding hallmark of the Grand Dame of Kallang evolved just a few years after her opening. Dollar Kasim, Singapore's star soccer player in the